Well, everyone, greetings and thank you for carving out time, busy schedule to join our continuous improvement committee today. I think everyone reviewed seen the agenda, and you can see we have a really a jam-packed and really an exciting set of presentations for us today. I'm really keenly interested in the results of some of the work groups and some of the activities that we've been doing. And I think is Dimitri on the call.
Yep, he's here. I see him.
Well, Dimitri, wanted to formally welcome you to your first meeting, which you are now a formal member of the CIC. So greetings to you and welcome Dimitri Kasoulis to our CIC meeting as a full member of this esteemed group. Again, thanks everybody for joining us today. First order of business is here's a great reminder. So let's go back to it. Let's go back to our great reminder. Make space for everyone. Together we know a lot. I like that. And I think everyone now have received the minutes from our April 19th meeting, and hopefully you got a chance to review them. And I'd like now to have for a motion to approve those minutes.
Yeah, Marlon, this is Barb. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, and I don't know if this is a big deal or not, but at the top of the minutes, where it lists the time, it says the meeting was 10 to 11:30. In reality, it was 1 to 2:30.
Oh yeah, I updated that, Barb. So the minutes that'll go out, I updated it. So thank you so much.
Because the ones we got sent didn't have the correction on them.
And the one I'm looking at didn't either. So Barb, thanks for that. And that's really what this is for. Anybody see any corrections, any comments of any sort? That's what this section is for. So let us know if there are. So I'll take that motion, Barb, but there's an opportunity again for anyone to kind of jump in if you have any other things to say about it. And in the absence of that, can I get a second to approve those minutes?
I'll second that, Marlon.
Thank you. We will not, Andy gave us an alert that he will not be able to join us today, Dr. Andrew Warrington, and he said he had some important matters to take care of in his company. That happens to all of us. So I told Andy we have it covered and we'll keep on moving. Sergio, we have you up first, if you would, Title III performance.
Hey, Marlon, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I was out on medical there for a little bit, recovering from a knee replacement. Things are going well, and I'm walking now, and feel great to get around, especially with the weather being as nice as it is right now, other than the little bit of rain. Okay, for Title III, everything since the last time we spoke continues to go very well. Things are starting to look up. Here we have the list of our job seeker services, our basic career services, our individualized services, and then with Wagner Pfizer, we don't do follow-up services. And things have been going very well. And I'll touch on the backside of on some of these success. You can go to the next slide. So for our program year 2022 Q2 targets, our negotiated goals, you can see them, we're 61 for the employment rate, second quarter, 65% for the fourth quarter after exit, and our medium earnings. In the second quarter, which would have been the quarter ending December, we met those goals with a 64.5 in the second quarter and a 65.3 in the fourth quarter. In our medium earnings, we were at 7,321. You can go to the next slide. What I did was I went ahead and threw, since we just got done with our third quarter, you can see in our third quarter outcome here, we jumped up to 67.4, 68.8, and we went up on the medium earnings probably by I want to say $600. The improvement here has been great for us under Title III, and a big part of that is our reemployment service program, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But we're seeing our performance data going in the right direction here, and a lot of it is what the staff is doing on the front line. Some few minor hiccups, as far as the data goes, but things are going very well for our Title III program. Our next slide. So for the second quarter, total participants served was 17,000 and some change, and then the total participant that exited was 16,000 and some change, and that was as of July 1st through December. And that's what was reported in the Workforce Integrated Performance System WIPS. Next slide. Now, some of the challenges that we've been having is minor input data in the MIS system, which is JobLink by staff. And this is the hiccup that I was mentioned earlier. We get staff sometimes will answer a question incorrectly, and the way WIPS is doing an edit check, it'll say that this question needs to be answered. Well, if this question is answered, this other question needs to be answered, and this is all dealing with the Pearl. In the beginning, I want to say like early last year, probably January, we were getting a lot of edit checks, and most of it was being, I call it self-inflicted because it was staff. But we were able to conduct some training and get staff to focus on what they were doing. So these minor edit checks in the data now are very minimal. There may be 2 or 3, but even though there are 2 or 3, it's hard for me I can't submit the WIP file with any errors in it. So these errors have to be manually fixed in the system. The file run in the background, and then the new file created and then re-uploaded into WIPS. And then WIPS will give us a clean report once the data checks are all cleaned up. Next slide. So our success was the transition over to our new, from our legacy system to the next gen, and always our vendor. And then this also includes our Tableau reporting. Is it they are constantly doing updates to the system, which helps improves the data quality that we're submitting to the feds. Any changes that the feds come down with, as far as new requirements or requirements to any of the programs for us, which is the Wagner Pizer, JVSG, the MSFW program, and reemployment services. Those changes are inputted, before the next reporting period, so that we can get that data into the WIP system. The big thing was the implementation of the RESCA program participants. They are now being cold enrolled. They've been cold enrolled for several years with Wagner Pizer. This program is a very robust program. RESCA is actually a UI program, and what it is it's reemployment services. And what we have in our UI system is that it has an algorithm and a workers profile scoring system, which will select individuals that are most likely to exalt their benefits within the 28 weeks of unemployment. Once they're selected, they are enrolled into the RESCA program. And at the same time, once that program opens up in our MIS system, it also opens up the co-enrollment for Wagner Pizer. And then there's auto ad services that go in there. And then these individuals are then scheduled for a one-on-one workshop with our frontline staff. It can be on the phone, in the office, or via a Zoom meeting or whatever. And then the staff, basically what they'll do is an assessment interview. They'll do an individual employment plan and work with the individual. And if need be, they'll refer them to any of the other titles if they need those types of services. But this program has been doing really great. I contribute that co-enrollment with the Wagner Pizer to our services, our performance increasing. Yeah, it's a lot of one-on-one, and the staff is doing a great job. Next slide. Again, on the continuous improvement job link, we're doing the training. This is where we get the the staff, both Wagner Pizer, JVSG, and the Wagner Pizer staff is the one that's doing the RESEA program too. The interviews and all that, and the services. We do this training every other Friday, and those errors that we get, we always bring those to the front in the training, just to remind staff so that they don't do it again. Tableau training on a new reporting system. Again, I didn't think I was going to like Tableau when we switched over to it, but I really enjoy it. There's a lot of good information for us and ways to work on the data that we're collecting and how is it being collected. It also gives us an opportunity to see if there's anything that that might be wrong or some issues with the data so that we can work it. And if it has to do with the staff, then we go back and train the staff on how to collect that data when they're working with the individuals. And the workforce GPS training, that's always ongoing. Next slide. I got word this past week that the RESEA reporting changes. We're waiting on guidance from DOL and ETA, and believe that the information is going to be coming out in June and will be implemented in July. The one thing too that we have going on is that Region 5 would send us what's called a quarterly report analysis of some of the data elements in in the Pearl, such as the program alignment, program entry alignment, program exit alignment, and services in the current quarter. We were able to take that report that they sent us every quarter. Usually it's about a month after we submit the report, and we've implemented that report in our Tableau system. So we're able to look at this data before they even come back to tell us if there's something wrong. So we can look at this data and see what's going on and see what fixes we need to do. But at the last look that I had on our program entry alignment, we were almost at 100%. We were at 99.98. Our program exit alignment, we were at 99. And services in the current quarter, which means the participant received a participant level service, we were at 99.9%. So it seems to be working very well with our new system and what the staff is doing out there to continue to improve our performance. Any questions?
All right, the floor is open. Any comments or questions for Sergio? Sergio just had one. I work hard to try to follow this, especially the successes that you highlighted. You mentioned that co-enrollment was up, and that was mentioned as an example of success. Can you explain why co-enrollment is important and for us?
Yeah, on the UI side, and the reason I'm going on the UI side is because RESEA is part of the UI program. We used to have
UI stands for what? What does UI stand for? Is that user interface or something else?
No, it's unemployment insurance.
Okay, unemployment insurance.
Unemployment insurance. And then what happened was about 2 years ago, the feds, we had a performance measure called Facilitate Reemployment. And I was using a totally different report. At the time, the feds really couldn't gauge that performance on facilitating reemployment services. So they switched over to the RESEA program. A few years ago, they came out and they said that with, in order to integrate this all into the WIP system, they decided to, instead of reporting it in a separate report, RESEA was going to be reported within the Pearl. And that they were going to use the co-enrollment under Wagner Pizer, which is employment services. And basically RESEA is exactly what they're doing, is providing employment services to these individuals that are most likely to exalt their benefits before, you know, they find another job. And it's also to get them off of unemployment as quickly as possible and get them employed.
Thank you. That was helpful for me.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions for? One other one before I open it back up again. I had a note here. You mentioned the data input has some errors, and it sounds like you feel comfortable that it's being addressed now in terms of providing feedback to those who made the errors. How are you handling this? What you just mentioned in terms of the challenge of data input?
Yeah, and some of it's very simple, you know, data entry. When they're doing a registration or they're updating some type of demographics, one of the demographic questions or the veterans questions is where I mostly see them where they're making their errors, because when you have a homeless veteran in the veterans demographics, that individual also has to be, there's another question for homelessness in the low income. And staff sometimes forget that they have to go in there to answer that question. So they have to be homeless, that the two homeless questions have to be answered together in order to register that individual as a homeless veteran in the system. So the system will kick that out to us and say, hey, you know, hey, Sergio was a homeless veteran in this area, but down here in the low income, he's not. So we have to go in there and manually fix that. And, you know, verify that they, with the vet rep, that the individual is a homeless veteran before we fix it too.
And so to correct it, is this mainly training, or how you minimizing that?
It's mainly training, and that's why we try to cover it on our Friday morning trainings.
I got it. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Yep, we try to cover any mistakes that they make, or, you know, and we're constantly, I'm constantly monitoring the data too, to see if there's anything, you know, fishy or some issue going on with the data. There's several reports that I look at on Monday mornings, and it kind of gauges what, you know, what we're doing and what we're not doing.
All right, now let me open up again. Any other comments or questions for Sergio?
One just quick thing that I would add. So after Sergio's presentation today, and then the other titles presenting last month, just a quick reminder, and I've dropped in chat, what you guys will see on or around June 15th is the performance dashboard. The transparency dashboard will be updated with data through the third quarter. And obviously there's a bit of a lag there, but the way the process works is some titles are submitting data to federal officials on a quarterly basis, and there's a process where they get confirmation that that's been accepted. And so what you see ultimately show up on this quarterly update to the dashboard is stuff that has been verified and went through all of the vetting processes necessary. So we typically do that on or around June 15th, but just a quick reminder that all the information that's been shared in the last couple of meetings around performance and around enrollments will all be reflected in the dashboard when it gets updated in June.
Great, thanks, Jay. Sergio, I don't see any more hands or comments, so thank you so much for that report, and it looks like we're on target.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
And now for the unified state plan update, Drew, please.
All right, thank you, Marlon. And I'll apologize to Marlon because this will be like the third time he's heard some version of this presentation. But thanks for having me today. There is a specific role I think that the CIC will play not only in the development of the state plan, but in, as your name says, the continuous improvement of the state plan and activities around that as well. But before I get into that, I just want to level set and kind of, you know, get everyone on the same page when we're talking about a WIO estate plan, what exactly that is. So as you can see here, I have this pyramid. At the very bottom is the state plan. It is the foundation for all of the activities that we do within WIOA. It sets the vision and the direction for the workforce development system. On top of that, it's regional plans, which we have 10 economic development regions in the state. And each one of those develop their own plans that are specific to the industries in those EDRs, to businesses there, and to their unique economic situation. Then we have 22 local areas in the state that also develop their own plans. And just like the regions, it gets more focused on that geographic area. And at the very top of the pyramid are memorandums of understanding at the local level. And that's where providers commit resources, whether that is personnel, money, or otherwise, to delivering the services to carry out and accomplish what is described in these plans. So the state plan is, first and foremost, it is a federal compliance document. It's prescribed by the law that created WIOA, and is further refined and prescribed by guidance issued by the Department of Labor. But it's also more than that. It is a vision for how we will integrate our workforce system, our education system, our economy, and the policies around those to help job seekers as well as employers and businesses succeed. So it's a compliance document, but it's also a visioning document, setting direction for us. So at a May 1 meeting that was convened by the governor, there were several concepts that kind of rose to the top as to what people are wanting to see in this plan in terms of a vision. And I'll just go through those real quickly. And if you've been paying attention to other studies around the workforce system, such as the Commission on Workforce Equity and Access, as well as other work that your fellow IWIB committees have been doing, all of this will sound fairly familiar. But quickly, some of the concepts are to infuse equity and access throughout the workforce development system, build a broader awareness of the workforce development system, both for job seekers and employers, provide a customer-centered approach to service delivery. You might also hear human-centered. We are using those interchangeably here. Making sure that job seekers have a pathway to good jobs, making sure that employers have access to the labor pools that they need, and that those labor pools have the skill sets that meet the employer's needs, and enhance coordination and collaboration between WIOA partners, but also other workforce systems administered by the state. There's the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act that is very similar to WIOA, except it is state funded and created. The Illinois Department of Transportation has a large workforce development program, wanting to make sure that all of those are working together instead of maybe, if not working against each other directly, not working in coordination. So those are the high level concepts. But also out of that, there was discussion around developing a plan that allows for easy evaluation of progress on that plan. That is part of the compliance piece, but it's also something that we want to do to make sure that we are spending our time, our energy, and our money on things that are helping the populations that we are serving. And that's going to be where your role will really come into play. So again, in the guidance issued by the federal government, there are many things. There are like 50 sections required, but for purposes of discussion today, these are some of the 4 highlights. So again, we have this vision that I talked about. The vision is setting the direction. It's where we want to go. Out of that, we move down to goals. So what are the specific outcomes we're talking about for this vision? Then we move down one more layer and we talk about strategies. So those are the broad approaches, such as career pathways, talent pipeline management. What are the strategies, approaches we're going to use for accomplishing those goals? And then we move finally to activities. And activities are very specific actions that we're going to use and fund at the programmatic level to implement the strategies, to accomplish the goals, to feed back into that vision, right? So it's very layered on top of each other. For the purposes of this committee, the areas that we want to focus on are really those strategies and activities. We want to make sure that, again, what we're doing is working. If it is working, if it's going really well, what's going really well and where else can that be applied? And if it's not going really well or not meeting our expectations, why not? And what adjustments do we need to make? The thing that I didn't mention is that in addition to a 4-year plan, the federal government requires that at the midpoint of that plan, we make a modification based on new economic data, as well as any lessons learned over those past 2 years. And so that's going to be very crucial to develop this plan in a way where we can have meaningful examination of our progress. So that's very high level. But when we think about that, then as we're developing the plan, there are really 4 things within each activity we want to define. If you'd sat on this committee for a while, we'd tried to put something like this onto the current plan, but it just didn't quite work because we didn't start out with this vision. And so we tried to glom it on, and it just didn't quite work together. So now we're starting out when we're writing the plan with these ideas in mind. So each of the activities, those things that we're talking about that are very specific programs or actions that we'll take to support the strategies, the goals, and the vision, we're saying right now need to have at least these 4 things defined in them. We have to say which goal the activity is intended to address. We have to say what resources are committed to accomplishing this activity. So that's financial, personnel, and other. Who is leading a champion? So who is leading the effort to accomplish the goals set out in this activity? That could be an agency, that could be a service provider, that could be a whole myriad of things. And then the outcome. For this specific activity, what is the measurable outcome that we are saying will happen or we want to happen from this? So as the group that is developing the content for the state plan looks at writing in the activities, these are going to be 4 areas where we are going to focus some thinking and at least put pen to paper and make sure that we have something down. Now I want to bring this up. Are you still seeing my PowerPoint, or do you see the Miro board?
We see the Miro board, but if you could zoom in a little bit, it's a little hard to read it.
Yeah, it's hard to read even on my screen, but I wanted to start out a little bit to show you the process that we were talking about going through. So this is a flow chart from this Miro board. So we're talking about either quarterly or every 6 months or annually, depending on the activity, because each activity varies in how often we can actually evaluate if it's working or not. But we're going to say, has progress been made on that outcome that we defined for that activity? If the answer is yes, and we hope it is yes, if progress has been made, does it exceed expectations? Great. Why? Let's say why it's doing well, and can we use that elsewhere? If it's just meeting expectations, that's the end of the analysis, and we'll check back in with it later to see how it's doing. If we're not making progress on the outcome, then we go through those 3 other areas that I mentioned: the goals, the resources, and a leader. And for each one of those, we ask, is the goal clear? If yes, then we can move on. If no, we want to say why it's not clear and provide some kind of solution. Same thing for resources. Are there committed resources? Yes. Great, we can move on. If not, why not? And then lastly, is there a leader that is pushing forward on this? If the answer is no, then why not? What can we do to adjust that? And if there is, then we've got to kind of do a deeper dive on if we have the committed resources, if we have a leader, if we have a clear goal and outcomes, why aren't we making progress on this? That will be a little bit deeper of a dive, and we hope we never get to that point, but it's certainly possible. And so we envision coming back to this committee quarterly, if that makes sense, or every 6 months, whatever we think would make sense to report out on the progress we've made on the activities that will eventually be included in the state plan. And that plan will be submitted in March of 2024 and go into effect July 1 of 2024. And with that, I will pause here and see if anyone has any questions. Great, we've got it figured out, it sounds like.
No. Still reflecting on this one. I really like this exhibit that you have up here. Drew, for some of us, especially some new members who are not so familiar with the state plan, can you provide us an example of some activity from a recent state plan and apply this kind of discipline to it, just so we can understand what does the state plan address and how might it?
Give me, I should have had that. That's a great question. A great way to orient people. I wish I would have had that pulled up. If you give me just maybe 30 seconds, I can get that pulled up for us in a way that will make sense. So here is, I know this will be kind of small, but so one of our strategies in our current state plan is expanded service integration. And so under that strategy, we have several activities around that. So provide coordinated and enhanced career services would be an activity. That's right here. And then here is where we talk about what we're actually going to do to within that activity. Provide coordinated and enhanced case management services. So again, this is talking about the service integration policy work group and the WIOA technical assistance team will coordinate and support the delivery of enhanced case management services to participants across the core programs and with other partners. So that's an activity that we're describing, and it gets into much more detail, but these are the activities that we would then apply that workflow logic to say, are we accomplishing our outcomes? Again, the thing that are missing from these activities that we want to really bake into the new ones are clearly defined outcomes. Not that there aren't outcomes in here, but you have to kind of go hunting for them. You have to really dig into it to know what the outcome is. And they might not always be written in a way that is, I'm sure as, especially the data people on here can attest to, in a way that is easily quantifiable or measurable. And so we want to create outcomes that are measurable to be able to apply that logic that was described earlier.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does. And those 4 points, I think, would be very, very useful to translate this into something more actionable and understandable. I think that's great. Can you, I don't think we'll do it at this meeting, but can you help us, maybe Molly, you can help us with this too, with the state plan is so huge. How would we even address some type of reporting to the continuous improvement using you pronounce it the Miro? I don't think I've used that.
Yeah, Miro board. Yeah, that's one way we've created reports before, and I can certainly provide versions of that. Don't want to throw them out without examining them. But I think that would be, especially around these activities. Again, these activities are where we will make progress on everything else. And the activities, while not an insignificant portion of the state plan, are maybe only 20 pages of a 500-page document. And I think that's where we focused on previously because of that. But I'd be more than happy to work offline and present later. And as we develop this, areas where the CIC can help monitor our progress on the state plan.
Yeah, I like Molly. Maybe you can help us with it, or somebody else maybe to speak to it in his turn. How would we even there's so many of them. Which activities are most relevant to our work? Which ones are most critical to the state program?
Yeah,
So I'd like to consider how we would approach it at a future CIC.
and Dimitri has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a quick, sorry.
Dimitri.
Thank you. Drew, I just had a quick question regarding what are some of the actual measurements? I know we kind of said we're establishing goals. What are some examples of some actual measurements that would be used?
I don't, to be frank, I don't have those yet. We're so early in the process of developing the plan that right now we're waiting for final approval on a vision and goals.
Okay.
You know, if we go back to here, we're still at
I'll get
this
there.
point.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would appreciate it if the committee would welcome me back over the next several months as we develop this plan to fill you in as we're starting to get into these strategies and activities to make sure that, again, what is being developed is something that can be measured and is something that this committee could make recommendations and examinations on.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, the measurements will be key in order to gauge success. So thank you.
Yep.
And just a note, if you didn't see, Molly posted in the chat that we have pulled out the Unified State Plan activities that apply to the work of the CIC. And we list those in the quarter. We can bring those to the next meeting. And we are very intentional about that with the posts with the previous one, and we will do with this one. And Drew, you are always welcome to join CIC and come hang out with our fun party.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Thank Dimitri for that.
Yeah,
Measurements.
Marlon, this is Barb.
Yeah, Barb.
Going back to talking about the outcomes and I guess more focusing in on the evaluation piece, and I know we're already in the process, but we've submitted numerous state plans over the years. Give us an example of how you evaluate when you say the goal is to promote something or to coordinate something. How do you measure those?
Yeah, so the goals, we would measure those by progress made on activities. So kind of how the vision is if we go back to thinking of like a pyramid or something hierarchical, the vision determines what the goals would be, and then the goals determine what the strategies would be, and the strategies determine the activities. Then to determine progress back up, we're going to start at that bottom level on those specific activities and say, are we making progress on these activities? If we are, well, we can assume that we would be making progress on our strategies that are working, and that we would be making progress on our goals that sit above those.
So you don't come up with something like, say there were 3 activities and you met or you did 2 of the activities, so where you actually have a metric to go along with it. Is that going to be part of this?
Yes. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn. I would hope so. This is not Drew Thomason's state plan. We're the group that actually provides the content met this morning, but in a previous version of this, we had something like that, where we had for each activity under a strategy, did it meet expectations, exceed expectations, or fall below expectations? And so if a certain number of them met or exceeded expectations, that means the strategy is working and we're making progress on that goal. If a certain number of them fell below meeting expectations or were failing, then obviously we're falling behind on both that strategy and the goal. But I can't give you a specific, if 66% of our activities are doing or meeting or exceeding expectations, then we're going to call that a success. I would envision that kind of language would be something that group would come up with, again, with the input from various stakeholders, including this committee, and then have that in the plan.
Great, thanks, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else? Any comments or questions for Drew? I think the action that came out of it, Molly would talk about is how we would approach how's it fit in our charter and all that. And I know that we have, as Amy said, integrate state plan in our work, but perhaps we can have a little slice of our agenda to be explicit in terms of how we can provide such feedback. Let me move on our agenda. Thanks for that, Drew, for that excellent presentation, and I get something good out of it every time I hear it. Drew, so thank you for that. I'm looking forward to this. Becky Raymond has been leading this service integration policy work group, and they've been doing some really Herculean tasks over the last period of time, and now they're showing us their results. Becky, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Marlon, for the time, and thank you to the committee for your time today. I'm excited to share out the work of the service integration policy. Oh, I lost my deck.
Amy, do you need me to share my screen? Hang on, I'm back now. Sorry. I love Zoom today. It's my best friend.
Sorry, I can't even operate without.
It tells me after it does it, you have quit unexpectedly. I'm like, yes, I see that. Thank you, Zoom.
So, yep, thank you. So for those of you that are newer to the committee, or just for everyone's context in general, the service integration policy, it really describes how the various titles collaborate and how they integrate with each other at American Job Centers and throughout the system as a whole. And so, hearing Sergio talk about co-enrollment and Drew talk about the plan and collaboration across titles, this is the policy where kind of where the rubber hits the road is articulated in terms of how the various titles, I'm trying not to use too much jargon, the various titles interact with each other. So to me, it's really the heart and soul of the system, because it's founded on a belief that individuals are better served when they receive more services and appropriate services. And so that is why I have been excited to be part of and lead this work group, and always giving thanks to Sarah B. and Molly for their amazing support in accomplishing this. So here we have the charge. This is not something Illinois has made up. WIOA requires state and, empower state and local areas to have boards and make sure that everyone is aware of each other's services and coordinating with each other. So that is the charge and priorities of the group. I won't read them all to you. Thank you for advancing the slides. Yes, there we go. The work group, so we have been, I've shared with this committee our progress at various times throughout the past year. Starting in April, we've been meeting twice a week to really wordsmith, go over the existing policy, identify where changes need to be made, and it's been an amazing process. The work group consists of department heads alongside local area practitioners. So there's a lot of very vibrant conversation in the work group, and people are thinking very hard about how to present a system that is truly integrated so that individual job seekers, when they come in, we're sure that they're getting all the services that are available to them. So, you know, I would say the successes of the work group have been collaboration and engagement. And, you know, there have definitely been some needs that we've identified. A global view of recommendations by core partners. We'll still need to update the self-assessment and one-stop operator certification. We are going to be sure to include a glossary of key terms as we roll out the policy. And even for those of us who are talking the inside baseball all the time, there still needs to be more clarity, because at one department, a term can mean something different than at another. So just really clarifying what we mean by these various terms. And tools to, we've come up with a lot of recommendations of tools to help state and local areas implement the policy. There, the staff, frontline staff, and really staff at all levels would benefit from continuous professional development. And we'll want to be sure that as we finalize this policy, that we communicate it out broadly to the field and let the field know what types of professional development and support they'll be getting to make adjustments to the policy revisions that we'll be recommending. I asked for the entire list of work group members to be shared out, because as I mentioned before, we've met twice a week since April, and they've really just rolled up their sleeves and put so much thought and energy into these policy revisions that I wanted to be sure that their names were held up alongside the process as we kind of land the plane, so to speak, on these policy revisions. So I really want to express gratitude to all of the work group members. So this has been our overall progress. You know, we started in October. We started before October, but by October we had our work plan approved. In November, we had this idea to really get feedback from the field and started planning for focus groups. In December, we held focus groups of frontline staff across the state. In January, we felt like we didn't have quite as much feedback from every corner of the state and from every title. So again, really appreciative to the staff who's been supporting this work. We did more focus groups. And then the task, once the focus groups were complete, the next task was codifying and organizing all the themes and information that we heard from the field. So that was a heavy lift, and I want to acknowledge Brian Richard, who is here on the call. He did a great job, you know, putting on his academic hat to help us organize the feedback that we got. In March, we came together for our Be There or Be Square Writing Day that we did in person. So that gave us a lot of time to really dig into the existing policy. And once we had the March in-person writing day, we shifted into twice a week meetings in April to really look through the policy bit by bit. prioritizing some that seemed a little more cumbersome. Some parts of the policy, I know that Sarah sent out the policy to this whole group. Yes, Sarah, right? That went out to everyone. It's an expansive policy. There's like so many different pieces of it. And so some goals were sent to other committees, and then we worked as a team to unpack the goals that we prioritize that I'll kind of get into in the next slides here. So we have some current next steps, and we're kind of at the point now where the policy revisions are done, and we're looking today for this committee to give a nod to us to take it to the next level so that we can have these policy revisions approved by the IWIB in June, if I have the timeline right. Yes, Sarah? Yes, okay, cool, thank you. So, so as I mentioned before, it's a very expansive policy that includes 7 goals across all of the titles: workforce development, adult ed, unemployment insurance, and vocational rehab are the core partners. And so our first step was to ask the work group which where our priority was, because it's such a big policy. So, you know, everyone felt strongly about intake and assessment and service goals and human-centered design. And some of the other goal areas like the career pathways goal and the evaluation goal, those were sent over to other committees or work groups who are, you know, even deeper in those subject areas. Thank you. Yes. So the focus goals were customer-centered design, which everyone is talking about now. It seems like, you know, in Drew's presentation, it's going to be a very big priority in the upcoming plan. It's something that we heard a lot about from the governor's commission. So these are things that are not off topic by any stretch. Customer-centered design, intake and assessment. How can we make sure individuals come into the system in a welcoming, streamlined, efficient way? And then the service goal, which is really even more detailed in terms of timely and coordinated services across entities at the American Job Centers. And then these are the goals that we moved over to other areas. So, for example, the staff goals were sent over to the WIOA Professional Development Committee. As I mentioned before, the career pathway goal was sent over to the Career Pathway and Targeted Population Committee, and so on. So we had such expertise in our work group that everyone was aware of when a goal within service integration should be addressed by another committee or work group. So we tackled this policy that way. Yes, and so here is just to give you a sense of how much feedback from the field we got for the focus groups. We did 9 focus group rooms. They were all done via Zoom. All local areas were represented in the focus groups. All of the main titles were represented, and some of the non-core ones were also there. And it amounted to 110 registrants. So thank you again for all the feedback and input. And this is the themes that came from the focus groups. Many of them were things that we've been talking about for a while, you know, unified data, cross-training, professional development, technical assistance, vision, and then some newer themes emerged. around accountability, having tools, especially we were talking a lot about coming back into the centers in a, I guess, post-COVID, if you will, time. So this is just to give you a sense of all the data that we gathered in terms of informing these policy revisions. So in terms of how we did collaborative editing, work group members. I think we're going to get to it in a second here, exactly what the process was like, but work group members on a weekly basis would receive a Google document where they could make comments. The outline stayed consistent with the revisions, so there's not huge changes in terms of the overall structure of the policy. You know, we were trying to always balance the focus on vision and also operationalizing the policy. And I think that that was one of the benefits of the work group, was having department leads and also individuals who are working at a local level and are you know, saying, well, that's fine from your perspective, but we need more concrete here, or we need to make a recommendation here to make it more discreet about how this really works in the field, because I've run into this barrier that, you know, that happens when we implement on the ground. So there's a lot of balancing that. And everything was also reviewed with the checklist to ensure clarity and accountability. And also we applied the equity task force's equity lens, their questions and that checklist to the revisions as they were made. So the cadence was every Monday. Every Monday, the policy was sent out. On Tuesday, we would have a writing group, kind of day one. On Thursday, we would have the second revision day, which sometimes if we had pieces from Tuesday that weren't fully addressed, we would still be hashing out some of the language or listening to people's thoughts. And if we didn't have leftover items to address from Tuesday, we would work through the equity task force's lens on Thursday. And so that is the cadence that we use to go through the policy. So the outline, as I mentioned before, has stayed consistent. These are the areas: the purpose, the overview, definition. We go through goals, and the outcomes are still in, you know, in the same areas. And originally, each goal had a goal statement and an outcome statement, and we tweaked it through the process of our collaborative revising to have a bit of a vision statement and then an outcome statement and then application points. And this really came from this configuration of the work group that people wanted bigger vision statements, and then also something, what is the outcome of it? You know, I mean, I think to Drew's point, in terms of how even the state plan will be written in a way where you won't have to dig so much for what are those measurable outcomes. Our work group also felt the need to not only have the outcome statement, but also application points. So that was the main shift that we made in the structure of the goals, the format of the goals. As I mentioned again, we tried to make sure that we were staying as true to focus group needs and focus group comments throughout the revisions. as a nine focus groups, 110 respondents. We didn't want to lose the essence of their comments as we made the revisions. Of course, Equity Task Force, their lens, their tool was very important, and the work group members themselves, they participated and had a lot of feedback and input in the process. So these are the phases. You know, we're asking the core partners to review the recommendations. We will need to do a self-assessment update. The last one was done in 2019. A lot has changed in our field since then. And so, oh, thanks, Sergio. Bye-bye. And so that will happen. As I mentioned before, we'll need a glossary. That is going to be an important piece because there are so many terms and they can be used differently by different departments. We will have a policy resource and attached development linkage piece, and we'll be creating tools to assist with service integration, training, and PD. There will be a lot of next steps. Even though we've been working so much to finalize the policy recommendations, there's this whole other piece of work that will flow from the updates in the policy. Okay. There were no major discussions or feedback notes from the May 16th meeting. We just had a service integration work group meeting. That was yesterday. And all members present approved everyone was there that was there have approved the policy. And like I said, the work group has been very involved. I think that even with us meeting twice a week, the attendance throughout the revision process was very high. They were very engaged. Everyone was there as much as they could be, or sending a deputy in their place if they could not attend. So that was our last work group meeting. For now, we are, taking it to this committee and then hoping to put it through wait, the next slide shows our timeline. Sorry, thank you. So the governor's office has reviewed it. The final work group has reviewed it. We are here today asking for the continuous improvement committee's approval. From there, we will send it to the IWOOD committees, the agencies, and we will post it for public comment. And all feedback will close on May 26th. We will have a work group meeting on May 30th to review all of the public comments and address any feedback that we receive. And then from there, we will send the final policy to the executive committee on June 1st. And the executive committee will hopefully approve our request on June 5th. And we will have a June 6th work group meeting just to incorporate and address any feedback from the executive committee. And then we'll send the final documents to the lead staff at the various agencies. All of this is moving toward the June 15th IWIB request for approval. So just to give everyone a sense of timeline and to refresh my own memory, obviously I was doing that as I read through it. But we do feel like we have really combed over this with a fine-tooth comb and been very thoughtful about what changes should be made. So here I am with the request that this committee approve it or share feedback if they have it. And the steps are there that we will take next. Am I missing anything, Sarah? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. She said I didn't forget anything, Marlon. So there you have it.
Well, I think the report was quite complete. And I think it was, your report was thorough and shows that it was truly an amazing process. I think it's a textbook on how you go about generating a policy that incorporates feedback from so many quarters and so highly engaged. But we see what the request is, a motion to approve. But before we do that, I want to open up the floor for the CIC members to provide any comments. All of us received the report. All of us have been getting various reports and updates over the past months. And so this is an opportunity now to provide any thoughts, any feedback, but we will, after the conclusion of that discussion, ask for an approval to move forward. And this is clear on what the approval is for us. The CIC approves the policy, if in fact that we do. And then that will go to the executive committee for their consideration for the full. So let me open up the floor now, and we have time for this discussion. We're going to shorten some other things on our agenda to accommodate full discussion for this purpose. So open the floor, please. Any thoughts, comments on the service integration policy, President?
Yeah, Marlon, this is Barb. Thanks for that wonderful presentation, and I especially liked knowing that there were a lot of different groups out there that you got feedback from, and hopefully the feedback you got from the locals and whatever, you were able to at least integrate some of those suggestions or feedback that they gave you into the document. I guess I have a couple of questions. I'm curious as to what types of feedback, kind of rose to the top of the list when you were doing your groups. That's my first question. And my second question is, I noticed you have a final date for feedback, though, just down the road. You don't really expect any other feedback to come in that you haven't heard already, do you? So that's really the two questions.
I guess we don't really. I mean, I think that the policy just needs to be available for public comment. Sarah did present to the workforce partnership at the WIOA summit. I don't know, there might be groups that are still digesting what we're putting forward. So I think there might not be, I don't know, Molly or Sarah, do you guys have any thoughts on that question about how much more input we might have during public comment?
I don't think we ever know, Molly, and then I'll kick it over to you to see if you have any additional comments. We're going to post, the policy will be posted to Illinois WorkNet and also distributed through the WIOA weekly announcements next week. We do think we did our due diligence on getting input from the field, but the field is vast, and this is the opportunity for anyone to give comments that haven't been asked. So I do think that we've gone through the steps we need to, but you never know. And I would say the reaction from the IWP was great. The Illinois Workforce Partnership, they asked for the policy also to be shared with the local workforce boards because they may not be as involved in this process as others in the field. So that is one point of feedback that we're going to be using to make sure that they also get it.
Did you get any feedback that was surprising to you?
No, I don't think so. I'll just say the
Good.
feedback from the focus groups, because there was, and Austin, Becky, I'll pass it over to you, because there had been so much previous research done on service integration, the same themes do kind of rise to the top. The major themes that were discussed were tools. The local areas need tools to accomplish the vision that is set forth in policies, and also accountability to make sure that we have something to hold people to as the policy is set forth into the system. So I think those were the two major points that came up over and over again, and ones that we would ask ourselves as we were revising the policy. Is there accountability here? Are we being clear? Is this too subjective? I don't think anything was too surprising. Molly and Becky, do you have feedback as well?
The only thing I would add is in terms of the feedback we get, it doesn't seem you received a survey to fill out with feedback. A few of the other groups received a survey. And so when we've done this in the past with policies, it tends to be that the feedback we get more revolves around providing clarity in sentences or expanding on certain definitions. So not so much the foundation of the policy, more just where we can elaborate to make things as clear and understandable as possible.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just to piggyback off of what Molly said, yes, more clarity, and especially from the local areas, I think that they wanted as much clarity as possible to build into that accountability process. So if you're, operating an American Job Center in a local area, and maybe one partner isn't totally clear on their role or not leaning into their role, like how can we use this policy as a way to ensure clarity in the field for the end result of service integration, communication, and coming together, collaboration in that way.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, feedback, thoughts?
This is Dimitri. I don't have any questions per se, but I was going through it yesterday, and I appreciate the amount of work and level of detail that was put into it. So great job, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
In a moment, we're going to ask for a roll call, so to speak, of the actual members of our committee. So let me open up one more time. Any other thoughts, feedback, comments on the service integration policy as presented? So with that, the request that is before us, and we can see it highlighted, is for the Continuous Improvement Committee to approve this service integration policy and the recommendations that were presented today. And Molly, can you lead a roll call vote for us on that? And the answer response will be yes or no.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to read names in the order I see them on my screen. So Marlon McClinton.
Yes.
Barb Oilschlager.
Yes.
Becky Raymond.
Yes.
Okay. Carlotta Roman.
Yes.
Amy Chambers.
Yes.
Oh, I should know, I'm only calling CIC members. So if I skip over you, I'm just calling members. Okay. Let's see here. Dimitri Katz-Lewis.
Yes.
Okay, I'm double checking I got all members here. Yep, that's all members.
And Molly, if I heard the responses correct, I think there was a unanimous of those voting members to approve the service integration policy and recommendations as presented. So Becky, thank you and congratulations to you and the outstanding team. And you were quite effective, I would say, at highlighting the vast number of people who contributed to this effort and how they stayed with it during this process. Twice, I was thoroughly impressed with that. So congratulations to that whole team and the CIC gladly and unanimously approved the work that you all been doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Well, let me move on to some new and old business in our last few minutes. And Molly, help me. I'm looking at our notes from our last meeting, and I don't think there's any dangling old business that I can think of. Do your notes reflect anything different from that?
My notes do not reflect anything different. The only thing that's come up today that I would add is Amy and I, for the next meeting, can bring the Unified State Plan specific activities that align with the CIC so that you can all see that. And then I followed up with Drew, and he'll come in July to give another update. So we can plan for that. And then the other thing of note is that today during Sergio's presentation, a really great question came up around co-enrollment. And I know that's been something that we've sort of touched on, and there's room for further discussion. So in a future meeting, I think co-enrollment is something we can bring to the surface again. And that's something, you know, Marlon and we can all meet about for maybe the July meeting, the June or July meeting.
Perfect. And I see we have in terms of our next meeting, we have the evaluation work group will provide an update. Sam, we will have a discussion on that as well. And our policy tools that were generated and developed by this continuous improvement committee, a discussion on where those tools are and how they're being used. And so we'll have a discussion on that. Let me open it to other committee members. Are there any other pressing matters that you think should be on our agenda next time as we caucus about what ultimately makes it to our next discussion? Anything else that I'm missing? Anyone? So I think, Molly, that those points will make a great agenda for next time and an important one for next time. And I think next time we're meeting in June in person, is that correct? Or a hybrid meeting?
That is
June,
hybrid.
June 15th
Yes.
in Collinsville, Illinois. So hopefully I will be there and hopefully others can join us for that meeting. Any other comments or questions from our committee members? Because we are about to open up the floor to anyone who might represent the public or who are not members of our committee. So before we do that, open up to the public, is there any other comments or questions or remarks that our committee members would have for us at this time? I hear none.
Brian, it looks like Brian shared a link in the chat to a really great opportunity to look at equity focused evaluation that's being offered by Workforce GPS. Brian, did you want to say anything about that?
Waiting for my public comment area where I
Oh, sorry, I jumped to it too quick.
just wanted to share a webinar that a DOL webinar on Monday afternoon that I will be presenting at based on some of the work me and my team have been doing with the state of Colorado. I learned today that there are 1,400 people registered for this already. So
Wow.
make it
Great. And I think, Molly, you said something earlier too on that thing. Someone. Great.
Yeah, I sent that out earlier today to the evaluation work group without even knowing there was a celebrity presenter. So now I should send it.
No, we have to be. Now, how long would that be? That's an hour, hour and a half? What is that?
It's a 1 hour presentation with two, so we'll have about 20 minutes of that plus some question time for our part of it.
All right, I'm gonna work hard to join that meeting. And so I think it would greatly inform our work. So if you can join that meeting, please do, especially if we know Brian leading it, we know that or contributing to it, we know that it's going to be very useful.
We're starting some similar work here in Illinois, and we will update the committee, say in Collinsville, about that work.
Oh, great. All right, let me open the floor to those who are who may be attending from the public, who are not on the committee, anyone who have, please at this time, give us your thoughts, your comments, or your questions. And I hear none. So with that, our next meeting, June 15th. Okay, with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Dimitri, thank you for that. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Becky.
Becky, thank you, Becky. Everyone be safe. Have a great day. And thank you so much for attending today. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.